Do we want to? All right, so just know we're recording this because we've just had some requests from folks who can't make it today. And this is going to be a really kind of collaborative launch. I will introduce myself and kind of give the team some space as well. My name is Sarah. I'm a proud 1002 member. That's the Department of Education. And I'm also a member of the Organizing Council, and I'm here with other folks from the Organizing Council and our incredible business agent, who I think I'm going to pass it to her because, you know, business agents never get the fame they deserve. So we'll put a spotlight on you now.
Wow, you're so sweet. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Janea Ariano. As Sarah said, I'm a MAPE business agent. I've been with MAPE for about 2.5 years, and I help represent locals 501, 502, and 1902.
Yay. All right, OC, do y'all want to give a quick introduction? Just share your name and say hi.
Sure. Hi, I'm Zach. I'm on the Organizing Council. I'm also Vice President of 1502 up in Moorhead. And I do have to leave at 12:30 today. I've got my boss scheduled a meeting I cannot get out of at 12:30 of all times. So
yes,
unfortunately.
Thanks, Zach. Does someone else from the OC want to introduce themselves? Yeah, I know we have two others. Yeah.
Everyone, I'm Ganzep John, a new member, yet to contribute much. Nice to meet you. And then, sorry, I have to shadow myself.
It's all good. We like your picture. Miss Davis, how about you? Do you want to say hello? Well, in the background, we have Miss Lolita Davis. She is a new member of the OC and is here with us as well. So today, I appreciate all of you coming. I know there's so much happening right now. You have a full-time job. You're also like obviously superstars in MAPE, and we have a rally today. There's just a lot happening. So thank you for sharing your lunch hour with us. We're here because, you know, kind of tried and true measures aside, we really believe that what's going to help move the needle this contract negotiation cycle is making sure that we have kind of like a steady stream, a culture perhaps, of kind of like local organizing efforts that showcase our power, right? And that can be anything from simple everyone like showing up in your shirts on the same day to a meeting, right? It might be a petition that helps you generate buy-in to your local meet and confer negotiations and the main table, right? So we really want to help folks think about what are some of the right strategies for your local. Are there things you're already doing that you want organizing support from the council? But we really want to challenge everyone to think kind of above and beyond those traditional structures that we use, you know, a big rally, a big Twitter campaign or a text campaign, right? To have more local infused efforts. So that's sort of why we're here today. Zach, do you want to add anything to that?
I don't really have a ton to add at the moment.
All right.
I will later.
Yes, perfect. Well, just to get kind of our juices flowing, I think one of the things that's helpful to us on the Organizing Council is thinking about a ladder of escalation. I assume that many of you know what this is because I see there are pros in the room. So I won't spend too much time on it, but the idea is that, you know, it can be helpful to try to plot out some of your ideas to figure out, you know, how easy is this? How much coordination does it take? How much risk is involved? Like, do we want to go right to a walkout, or do we want to like start with a letter campaign and work our way up to some of those more serious actions? And so this you'll see here, I'm gonna share a Jamboard. We'll share that in the chat, but I'm just gonna pull it up here. But if you're new to Jamboard, the way this works is that there is a Post-it note on the side, and you could say you want to start with a petition. That's something that 1002 is doing. And you press save and you can get out, and then you can kind of decide like how much risk is involved in this activity, right? So I think about, it sort of depends on how you execute it, right? If you sign a petition and only like 20% of your members participate and you share it with the boss, that feels maybe more risky for some people, right? But it's going to be less risky if you have really good participation, and it seems really unified. So before we share resources or kind of get into the discussion, we just wanted to do some idea generating here on the ladder of escalation brainstorm. And this comes from Labor Notes. Tons of resources that we're sharing are inspired by Labor Notes. So if you don't know where on the ladder something goes, just like put it an approximate guess or leave it along the outside and we can kind of talk through that. But add a couple ideas, maybe challenge yourself to add 2 ideas that are something that either you're trying at your local, you think would be viable, something you've seen in other organizing spaces. March on the boss. I like that. I feel like you could play some like Death Eater music while doing it. Yes. Thank you for adding. Oh, Lolita, we get your photo now. That's fun. I love it. And if you're not really the Jamboard type, that's cool. You can unmute, maybe just share some ideas out into the space. Beautiful, lots of ideas. So in the ideal scenario, right, this is the type of conversation you want to have with your local, right? And as you are planning and brainstorming, this might be a really fun tool to make it more participatory, right? To build some of the leadership skills of folks in your local, right? Like, let's say you've got a bunch of people who like do well with like taking marching orders and executing, but you're trying to cultivate more folks who can lead in the strategizing, the outreach. This is a really good tool to use. And perhaps in our follow-up, we could send a template for you to use this as a tool with your meeting, if you're gonna meet with your local. Yes. Yes. I love here that also different stakeholders are being named, right? That's something that we'll want to really think about is like, who is our target audience and why? Maybe it's the commissioner, maybe it's not. I like that someone is here is naming the governor, right? I also think about, we serve all of Minnesota, right? And like, how do we tap into the power of those we're serving? Are they sometimes our stakeholders, right? Like, can we invite people we're serving to town halls to stand with us, right? That's something I know that I think a lot about, how to do that without causing harm or disrupting services, right? This is
Yeah, some of these,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say some of these, you know, like the make background for meetings and you know, maybe some of these others like informational posters, flyers, that sort of stuff. Like those are targeting our members, right? I mean, members who may not be engaged yet. So that's important. But really all of these really target your members. You know, even if you get a small group of people to do a petition or whatever, the people who didn't participate are going to notice. if you do it right, right? And people generally are attracted to a crowd. Like an example of what we're doing up here in 1502 is there's a big conference on one of our campuses up here. And they've invited MAPE to table at the event. So we're gonna do like an informational ticket outside, and then we'll all walk in together with MAPE gear and signs and posters and that sort of stuff. And then we'll host some events, sort of like unconference sort of events, like within the overall event, so that we can kind of do like a teach-in of the contract itself.
That's
and
dope.
what's on the table. So
Yeah. So as you're talking, one of the things that's just coming up for me is thinking about timing, right? We want to be a little aggressive. We're in the thick of it with negotiations, but it's also Employee Appreciation Week. LOL. I don't know about you, maybe your agency's doing something. Mine tried, and we corresponded we did a lot of petition work during Employee Appreciation. So thinking about when are folks in the building, what's a good way to organize in a hybrid based on the timing of how things work at your agency in your local is something to think about. And this is a great kind of start to thinking about organizing. I like a new idea just coming up, taking steward training and becoming, just making sure we're building our power locally. So I think you can keep these ideas coming. I'm going to move the Jam board out of here. But I'm not going to belabor this, and we can share this out, but I think these are some kind of tried, recognized strategies to think about when you're deciding what is the right tactic to choose. Right? Does the action relate to the issue? Right? How are we making sure that people can see a kind of a cohesive narrative? Will this increase pressure on the decision makers? Right? That again are your fellow members, your bosses, MMB, the governor, the legislators, right? What's going to increase pressure? Can you actually pull it off? Do you have what you need? Is it viable? How is it timed? Right? Is it new and different? We would love to see things that are innovative and exciting, especially as we're in this new working environment. That's obviously something we need to think about. Also, tried and true things work as well. How are you going to use actions to unify, to build a culture of shared power, right? Hopefully organizing actions can fill everyone with happy hormones that amp them up. I don't know about you, but a good chanting session leaves people feeling fired up and excited sometimes. But also being realistic about how could things backfire. What do you need to do proactively to support your people, support yourselves, make sure that your action isn't gonna result in too much harm, and being ready, right? So some of the actions we want to take might rustle some feathers, and that's awesome. And are our stewards ready? Does our business agent know? Are we on deck ready to go? I think here, given where we're at, this is a really transformative moment, and MAPE really has folks back. So we want to see people pushing the envelope. And as the organizing council, we're happy to help you figure out how to mitigate risks, and how to be prepared for anything that might kind of get in the way. Also, will it be fun? Obviously, that's something we should always strive for. So some things to think about. And we wanted to share a resource in the chat. Now, this is a very evolving document. It's not complete. We have just been brainstorming some ideas about what are some common actions that you could take, and some basic tips, some things to think about. And we wanted to just name some of the possible pitfalls. I want to name that for all people, there are different consequences for the same actions, right? Because of power and privilege and socialization. And that's something we really got to think about when we're taking actions. How are we protecting our people, and recognizing that some things impact some more than others, right? So always be thinking about that. But we've tried to name some of the other more basic pitfalls. And we're linking resources. So I think this would be a good time, just take a peruse, but we would love to hear from all of you about what are things that are happening in your local. Are there ideas that kind of resonate with you? Is there something that you're already planning? This can just be a space for sharing and for generating some more ideas based on our brainstorming list that we started with. So I would just kind of invite folks to unmute, share some thoughts.
I want to talk a little bit about the checklist and choosing tactics, because my local did this early on with our cat, and I realized pretty early on that the appetite for higher risk things was not exactly there yet. So one thing that I suggested, like if we don't have people willing to do it, higher risk things, like what is something low risk we could do? So informational flyering was suggested. What we're going to do, we'll actually have to go pick them up today, but we printed some pretty big pro contract signs, and we intend to hang them up all over work sites, specifically not on any MAPE bulletin boards. We're going to hang them up against the rules. And when we talked about that a little bit, like some people showed some nervousness around it, right? They were like, we've done that in the past and we've been asked to take things down. And I was like, that's good, right? You didn't get fired, you didn't get written up, nothing actually bad really came of it other than you were asked to take things down. But one way, at least within my local, because we have so many different agencies within my local, like I'm going to show up at places where I don't even work, and I'm going to be the one who hangs them up, which is one way to mitigate that risk to the people who are there. They can be like, oh, look, a steward from Minnesota State showed up at some DNR offices, right? So there's that. The other thing with it is that, once you can show that, hey, look, I didn't actually get in trouble for this thing, what can we do to escalate it? And then we also picked the informational poster thing, because it is there is a MMB wants to get rid of the bulletin boards. So if that's what they want to do, then MAPE members still need to share information with each other. So this is how we're going to do it from now on, right? So we also very specifically picked one of their silly bargaining points, and we're gonna really ride on it specifically, so that when management does ask us about it, we can just keep bringing that up. Like, look, MMB wants to get rid of the bulletin boards. Where else are we supposed to hang stuff, right? So that's that, and then from there, hopefully that builds into more people willing to carry those signs into that conference at the end of the month.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, Zach. That's helpful to know some of the behind the scenes rationales and the ways you're thinking about things. Are there things that are kind of resonating for folks or are top of mind, things you're seeing taking place in your local or you want to make happen? Questions that you might have for the group? Yeah, go ahead.
So we've already been holding listening sessions and town halls and just kind of communicating out how things are going, both on the supplemental level and on the main table level, as we can, and doing updates. We also invite people to come observe our meet and confer, so that management has to stare them in the face when they say no. And those kinds of things. And I'm really hoping I can get a few people to come to my next one, because we had a situation in one of our Deed town halls, not the town halls we were hosting, but one that Deed was hosting, where people were like, why can't we have X? And they were like, you have to negotiate for that. or that, you have to have that put in your contract. That's a union thing. And, somebody said, well, then you have to negotiate with us to give us those things, and kind of got some blowback for that. And I want to talk to them at the meet and confer table and say, okay, if you're going to say things like that in town halls, expect to be called on it. Because if we could just get everything we wanted in our contracts by saying, oh yes, put that in there, this is what MAPE wants, and just get it without you being the impediment to that,
Right,
we'd have it.
right.
So the reason we don't have these things is because when we ask for them, we don't get them.
Yeah,
So, and so I'd like to, build some power behind those kinds of things. And just, I know
Yeah.
that we've had some interest in letter writing, but I don't know if we have enough. Like, I've had a few people tell me, oh yes, I would write a letter to the governor, or I would do this, but I don't know if we have enough to really get that critical mass in my local. It's a fairly low risk local. So
yeah, that's a
But-
great thing to kind of calculate, Maureen.
getting people to kind of watch though is something that we've been able to do in the past, and I think we
Yeah.
can keep doing, and having them just be present.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. I also think about like, as you're watching, like, what are some of the tactics to like have those people who come watch relationally go back to their staff, their colleagues, and be like, do you know what I heard? Right? Because I think part of it is like, you need to have that really like personal friendly hook, right? For some people to get involved, they're only going to come if their cube mate who they love is like gonna go, right? So that might be a good thing to think about, is what is the additional kind of tactics to expand the reach after some of those sessions.
Mhm. Yeah, there also has to be some, I think, agitation as follow-up, right? Like if people are maybe a little timid, which I totally understand, not everyone's. I mean, like generally, I feel like people are either like willing to go on a wild like by themselves insanely, or they're just kind of disengaged, right? There's not a whole lot in between at the moment. But we need to find ways of being like, okay, let's try this small tactic, and then ask people if it worked or not. Because more often than not, like management's not going to care about small little things, right? We do a rally, they go, whatever, like, so we just need to start pushing people to be like, okay, did that work in an honest assessment, right? And if the answer is no, then you have to be like, okay, well then what's the next thing that we're willing to do, right? And that's how we build up and kind of flex that organizing muscle in a way that over time people get kind of inoculated to the sort of risks that may be present. Because another thing to agitate people with is like, okay, we did this thing, nobody got in trouble, which means we probably didn't do anything, right? Like we didn't do anything scary enough for management. They didn't try to shut it down. But you have to kind of like boil the frog.
Correct. Are there other folks that want to share, that have questions? I see we have a new person. Hi, Joanne. We are actually wrapping our time together. What we had talked about was just like different tactics for local actions during negotiations. Can I get some folks to reshare the links in the chat for Joanne? Is there anything else that folks want to share that's on their minds? I think the big takeaway message is that I want you to know that we are all here to support you. And if you have ideas about things you want to organize with your local, and you need help with the grunt work, you need help like making templates, you need help like making calls, the organizing council can help both on the planning and execution side. I mean, obviously we don't have the relationships you have, so our execution is only that good. But we're here for you. We want to support all of you. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave my email here in the chat also. Are there any kind of last ideas that people want to share? Or or perhaps even like concerns about like, do you have the bandwidth to do things like this at your local? Like, what do you, if there are needs that you want to share? All right, well, in that sense, I hope to see you in my inbox, that you reach out and ask for help, and I can help connect you with the OC, with some fabulous BAs, whatever we need to do to help you, or we want to do that. So I appreciate you for sharing some of your lunch with us. Joanne, sorry, we're leaving right as you're coming. But yeah, let's all make some moves. I really, I hope that we can rile everyone up for this contract. 'Cause I don't know about you, but I love our proposals and I want to see them all right now. So with that, I'll give you the rest of your time back. Hopefully you can get a good lunch break in there. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, Tanya.